So getting back to the psychological aspect of it, so you talk in the book about guilt, and that's
No, we wouldn't talk about guilt, would we?
In multiple Marriers situations. So can you tell us a little bit more about that, and also any suggestions how to overcome that?
Well, don't get in the situation. You won't have any guilt. But guilt, yes, that's huge. I've dealt with it, thank goodness. I would say throw the guilt out with the bathwater because it serves no purpose. It isn't productive. I think at some point you have to forgive yourself and you have to forgive others and you have to move on, but a lot of people never really do. I will say that I'm ashamed and I'm embarrassed and I don't wear it on my sleeve. In fact, that is the one question I do not want to be asked. You can ask me my age, my weight, my income, anything. Just don't ask me how many times I've been married. It sends shivers up my spine. And it happens a lot. You'd be surprised. This is sort of the way it goes. You'll be in a group of people and they'll say, oh, Pam, do you have children? No. Are you married? No. Have you ever been married? Yeah. Uh-huh. Are you married now? No. How many times? I don't know what that has to do with that. How many times have you been married? Well, I just had a hard time answering that question. I thought, well, I'm going to inject humor into it. So I said, I usually say more than once and less than 5. That's sort of an honest answer. I mean, just walk off, get a cocktail, and hope for the best.
Yeah.
But no, really, I think multiple marriers live with a fear of being judged, a fear that their credibility will be affected by their past life experiences. Instead of life's mistakes, I call them life experiences, but it depends on the circle I'm in. Quite frankly, my very first husband, who was the best husband I had, I'll take full responsibility for that. I was out in the discos when he was studying for his architecture degree, his MBA, and then on to the law degree. So I did have some guilt about that particular divorce for a long, long time. But with respect to him, he went on immediately. He moved to a new state, and he found someone else. And just about the time our divorce was finished, I get annulment papers from the Catholic Church in New Orleans. And I'm like, I'm Southern. He's not. What's he doing down in New Orleans? He's getting married again, and he wants me to sign some kind of annulment. I'm not Catholic. I'm not doing this. I threw him in the trash. Well, because he asked for an annulment in the church so he could marry a Roman Catholic lady, and they're still married to this day, by the way. I saw them on Family Feud back in the 80s together. Seriously. I thought, well, he asked for an annulment, so I'm just going to leave that marriage out. And for many, many years, I sort of lied by omission. I would just say, yeah, 3 times. In fact, my lovely partner in the back of the room did not know for years that I had the 4th marriage.
That brings a great question.
Oh, where am I going with this?
Which is, when you are in that situation as a multiple marrier, and now you're trying to move beyond
forward,
it and find your next relationship, what do you say? When do you say it about your history, and how much do you share? Do you have any thoughts?
Oh, I do. I'm going to tell you what I have done and what I would do over again. When you're talking about anything beyond, for me, 3 marriages, it seems like a high number, even to me. So I stayed away from the altar for 13 years. I only dated 3 men after my last husband, last husband. The first gentleman I dated had been married young and divorced and vowed he'd never get married again. The second person was a playboy overseas. He talked about a Vegas wedding, but he didn't mean it, and he dropped me on email. So that kept me away from the altar. Then I meet this lovely gentleman. We really start off on a friendship basis, but it moves very, very quickly. And he was not quite legally ready to get married at the time. Now, I have these 4 marriages and divorces. This is a man who thought about becoming a Lutheran minister, a good man, a kind man. I'm talking about the man in the back. And I just couldn't go beyond. I told him about the first and second marriage right away. And the third marriage leaked out when he was asking me questions about my past and things didn't add up. Now, you know men don't have the memory of an elephant like women do. So I was kind of hoping he wasn't going to put two and two together. And it went that way for a while. But I don't know what tripped us up, but I finally had to, well, yes, there was a third. But I left that marriage in garbage bags. It was terrible. I was abused and all that. And I went, phew, he's accepted me. He still wants to go forward with the relationship. I could not tell him about the fourth. He did not know about the fourth marriage until he read the book. And we've been in this relationship 8 years, and the book came out a year ago. And very few people knew that I'd had 4 marriages. Very few, just very few. My family and a couple of dear girlfriends who vowed they'd never tell anybody. But I remember going to work one day. He had been kind enough to build a website. He said, I'm going to support you. He was one of the people who said, you have to write this book. It'll be healing for you. You can help other people. I went to work one day. So I was ready to get this thing out there, and he said, well, I'll read the whole thing for you. Because I'd only been giving him chapters along the way and leaving parts out. Lying by omission, I guess. I go to work, and it's awfully quiet. We usually talk 2 or 3 times a day. Nothing. I'm not calling him. He's not calling me, and I did not want to go home that evening. I drove in. He's upstairs at the computer like always, and I said, hi, how are you? I'm fine. He said, Did you tell me that you married you didn't tell me you married the Anderson guy, because I had talked about a high school sweetheart, Anderson, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't? We didn't talk about that? I'm surprised. Are you sure? And he started laughing just like he is now. He said, oh, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I know you. We've been through thick and thin. It's okay. I said, okay, now I do feel relieved. I said, may I just ask you a question, though? If I had told you about this 4th marriage, early on, would you have bolted from the relationship? He said, well, I might not have bolted, but my antenna would have been way up there. I would have been overly cautious. He said, because that just sounds way too much. That just sounds like too much to me. And I said, well, it does to me too, and that's why I didn't tell you. Now, that's the way I did behave, and that's not right. And here's what I would recommend, and this is what I would do again if I were in the shoes. Most relationship counselors will say, don't blurt it out on the first dinner date. But when you're starting to see that the relationship may go forward, it may have legs, you need to get it out there. I don't care what issue. If there's some burning issue that's affecting you and may affect him or her, you need to get it out there. So here's what you should do. You should just find a time. You should just say, honey, there's something that's really personal and really important to me that I want to share with you. It may be difficult for you to hear and to accept, but if we're going to go forward with this relationship, this is something that we have to talk about. And I'm asking you to approach this with an open mind and open heart. I am not the same person today that I was 20 years ago, and I just need to discuss this with you. Are you ready for that? And if he says yes, or she says yes, it's the time to do it. Now, if he says or she says, I'm not sure, it depends on what it is, I don't know, I really don't know, then say, well, I'm going to give you some time to be ready. But if you aren't ready in a sufficient amount of time, then we may need to discuss about whether we have to go forward with this relationship, because this is really important to me and it's important to us. Don't you think that sounds like a better strategy than what I had done, even up until the recent past? So anyway, I'm sorry, honey, but thanks for hanging in there with me. I've actually been with him longer, Christian, longer than I've been with any husband, so I'm trying and buying and using the lessons that I've learned.